It is August 27th. 27th. Can't speak. Yeah, it's the 27th of August 2021. And I wanted to talk about housing. The eviction freeze has just ended not too long ago, and housing is going to be a problem for the poor. It always has been a problem. The problem is going to get worse, and now is a good time to talk about the future of housing and why it's going to get worse. The housing problem could be fixed fairly easily, and I will talk about that, how to fix it. But again, we'd have to want to fix it, and the problem is a lot of people uh, don't want to fix it or convince other people they don't want to fix it, and or convince, you know how propaganda is, some illogical conservative talking point about how fixing it is somehow bad, and that's a whole nother thing. So it can be fixed pretty easily if people wanted to fix it. We'll get into that at the end. Let's talk about why it's even like what the issue is. All right, so eviction freeze just ended, and rent's gonna go up. So why is rent gonna go up? Well, I mean, so it's been low during the pandemic, during the freeze, and as people get evicted, uh, they're gonna be able to. There's gonna be a lot of people, a fairly decent demand for they can't afford to buy houses, but they still need a place to live. People getting evicted, so they're gonna, you know, look for someplace else or the same apartment, but the prices are going to be raised because if people are willing to buy it, rent out a place for a higher price, and there's not enough, inventory to find a cheaper place, then people are going to charge more, and it's going to be expensive. It's already been going up since 2020, and we haven't even hit like peak of where everyone's been evicted yet because the freeze just ended, and it will take some time for people to actually get evicted once the freeze ends. Uh, so this will just continue to probably to go up till it flatlines, somewhere up here, and that's a problem. So why are there so many renters, and why isn't there enough inventory? Part of the problem is there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the things that could easily be fixed as a problem is the I guess you could say Wall Street, but just kind of investment firms or real estate firms that buy property not to sell it, but to rent it out, and that has been going up. I mean, it's in the 2008 crash. Some of these firms bought a lot of homes, and they continue to buy homes. There are many of them, more than 200. Well-known ones are BlackRock. Everyone knows BlackRock, and it seems like JP Morgan, stuff like that. And this is a local Fox station, but there's plenty of other websites that talk about it if you feel like doing your own research on it. There's plenty. It's a known thing that they're buying up houses, and that's a problem because they're not going to sell the houses. They're buying them up so people can't buy their own houses, and thus have to pay rent. And obviously, when you're paying rent, you're just giving money to someone else, and you're not growing your own wealth. And these investment firms are just going to buy houses over the next 10, 20 years if they're allowed to, and just keep buying and buying and buying until there's barely any houses left. Because why wouldn't they, right? Uh, they buy up homes, not enough homes, their home prices go up. They can charge more for rent. It's a win-win for them, especially in low property tax states like Florida, maybe Texas. You can buy homes. Property tax isn't too high, so you can sit on them, and they just make you money. You have an investment firm who just hires people to manage them, uh, and they just free money. And the people who can't get out of renting have to continue to rent, and instead of that money being saved up to purchase their own house, that money just goes into big investment firms and increasing the inequality that we so love in America, apparently, because we've done nothing to fix the inequality and we just can continue allowing it to get worse and worse. And so, back in 50s or up to the 80s, 90s, people were able to buy a home fairly easily, fairly affordable, and there was more space for homes back then as well to build homes, and so everyone could really afford to buy a home and thus not have to waste money renting. But there are less homes available. There's still plenty of space in America, but not all of it's zoned for housing. You can only build houses in places that it's zoned for housing. You can't just build it in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you got to have electricity, sewage, even internet these days, which you really need. And it, and so we're heading in the direction where uh, it's just going to be unaffordable to maybe where people are just going to be paying high rent and thus can't save up money and end up in a situation where they can't save up money to buy a house, and so they never get out of the renter's market. And over the years, the investment firms will just keep buying up cheap houses when one comes available. When one's on auction or there's a housing crisis, they will just keep buying up homes until there won't be any homes for the rest of us over the coming 5, 10, 20 years. So how do you fix that? You fix it by a very socialist mentality, a very what some might call non-American mentality. It depends on what you think of American mentality is. You could easily just make a law that says investment firms can't buy houses. You can't have uh, investment firms buying single-family homes. Maybe they can still buy or make like you know tower type apartment complexes, stuff like that. But the homes that people want to buy and own, the normal middle class, lower class people, single family homes, you can make a law saying you can't buy those. You can make a law saying no individual or investment firm can own more than say 3 single family homes, right? If there's still some richer people out there, they can own 3 homes, maybe even up to 5 homes. It won't make much of a huge difference. But these investment firms that buy up thousands and thousands of homes over the years, they're not the entire problem, but there's also problems with stagnant wages, lower wages, inflation keeps going up, but wages stay the same, so people just have less money in general. Yeah, but on top of that, you have people, investment people buying up houses and then not leaving any houses for the rest of us. And the problem's going to continue to get worse. And if you want to fix it, honestly, it's pretty easy. You just make a law that says they can't buy single family homes. Of course, people won't like that. Oh, well, a lot of people will like that. A lot of middle class, poorer people. But a lot of middle class people won't like that because they'll be brainwashed and thinking, oh, what if, you know, I was going to be rich one day and I was going to own 10 houses. oh, I wanted to rent out 10 houses myself. So no, this is stupid. I don't want this because I want to be the landlord. And every middle class person thinking they're going to be rich one day, when only a small fraction of them will be, you know, so they're fighting for it. They'll be like, oh, I'm going to be rich, so this rule's bad. So they're fighting for a rule that helps the wealthy, even though they're not wealthy, thinking that maybe, they're going to be a big landlord one day, which again, not great for the poor. But even these middle class people who think that they're going to be that or could want to be that, most likely only a very tiny fraction percentage, 1% or less, will end up being in a situation where they could even own more than one house, let alone multiple houses to rent out. And the real people who want it is the small fraction of people who have stocks in the investment firms, or are involved with the investment firms, or politicians who take bribes, or or contributions to their political races from these investment firms, right? So they're the only ones who like really benefit from this. And then through propaganda, news outlets, conservative news outlets, they convince people that, oh, it's bad for you too, because what about your freedoms, and what if you wanted to own more than a few houses? And my response to that is, what about the freedoms of the people who can't afford even one house, right? What about the freedoms of the people who can't get out of the renting black hole where all their money gets sucked out into paying rent and they can't save enough to own their own home? Those people don't have freedom, and those are the majority of the people, not the super rich. The super rich are my very, very small minority, and the greatest good would be to limit the buying of single family homes to investment firms. That's a very simple solution. Of course, you need other things to boost the middle class and poor's income, increasing minimum wage, stuff like that. But for the housing part, one thing you can easily do that can increase housing affordability over time is just make it so these investment firms can't buy up all the houses. And you don't have to make them sell all at once. You can make a law that requires them to slowly wind down their property ownership over the course of years, so you don't have you could have a sudden flood in houses if you wanted to. You could just make a law that they have to sell their houses, and that'd be a lot of houses available at once, uh, which is great for people who don't already own a house. But people who own a house are going to be mad that their property values have plummeted because of the sudden influx of houses, which would eventually even out anyways. But to avoid that, you could make a just caveat in the law, or just a wind down deadline to the full enactment of the law, where they had to sell so many of their houses per year until eventually, there's single family homes are out of the investment firms, and there are houses for people who need them, for people who just want to own one tiny little house, who right now can't and have to rent, and are looking at a future currently where it's just going to be harder and harder and harder for people to get out of renting, until, if the super rich had it, or these investment firms had it, everyone would be forced to rent. And we'd be entering, well, we're already in a new age of kind of feudalism, but we'd be entering into a more advanced stage of this new feudalism where we'd all have to rent and we can't own because it's unaffordable. That's the current trend we're going at. So I really want to avoid that. So if we can get some, progressive movements going, some progressive politicians, get out these people who take money from firms, get out the corrupt people, that would be great. I'd really like that. And I think a lot of people would also really like that, even if they don't know they would like that because they're convinced it's bad. A lot of poor people, a lot of middle class people would really appreciate that they can actually own a house one day. So let's get that done. All right. You guys have a good one. See you next time.